This presentation is about Diamond Peak Ski Resort by myself, Clare Patros, Will Kennon, and Ethan Alexander. Will be presenting after me, speaking on slides 8 through 11, followed by Ethan, who will present on slides 12 through 16. This is our overview, where you can see that we will start with an introduction, followed by an explanation of our problem domain. Then we will elaborate on the three main elements of our Excel spreadsheet, which are exponential smoothing, our break-even analysis, and strategic capacity planning, followed by a conclusion. We, as the management team of this ski resort, have been noticing that our competing resorts have had increasing numbers of skiers visiting their resorts each season, while our numbers were not nearly as steadily increasing. We have been comparing our data with their data, as well as more closely analyzing our numbers to try to figure out how to bring our numbers higher up and to bring us back into the pool of competition. After looking more closely, we narrowed down the problem to a few specific issues. So as the management team of the ski resort, we have chosen to better address these issues using three operations management analysis methods. We believe the addition of these systems will enhance our ability to compete with the few large players in our industry, such as Vail Resorts and Aspen Ski Company. By utilizing a new set of decision support systems within our company's operations, we will be able to manage our costs in a more effective way. We will be better prepared for the upcoming 2021 ski season. We will know what it takes to break even and maintain profitability in the future, and we will make better capital expenditure decisions in expanding our resort going forward. Our problem domain. So our problem domain in terms of the ski industry in general, two main problems that we observed were climate change and the variability of winter weather. These kind of go hand in hand in that they're both just very unpredictable factors that make forecasting our numbers very difficult. As well as another thing that we noticed was decreased interest and exposure to skiing in millennials. Millennials have a tendency to have more debt, and therefore they tend to spend more and longer hours working. And so they just have less time for leisure activities such as skiing and less exposure to it. Then our problem domain in terms of our ski resort in particular, some of the main issues that we have is the difficulty in adequately forecasting our skier demand each season, determining how many days to stay open and how many tickets to sell in order to break even is something that's difficult and a calculation that we will run through in our Excel spreadsheet. And finally, selecting the correct model and number of chairlifts to install in our new Diamondback face of the mountain, which is a new ski slope that we're going to be opening up in the upcoming season. So considering these problems, we were able to use three operations management analysis methods to troubleshoot these issues. The first method that we used was exponential smoothing. Our goal in exponential smoothing was to better forecast the total number of skiers that we expect to attend our resort in the upcoming 2021 season. This exponential smoothing model will help us to keep our expenses to a minimum while we prepare to open the mountain in the summer and fall months. As we have observed using our internally derived historical data, there appear to be no major up or down trends in the total number of skiers that attend our resort each year. Therefore, we as a team decided on an exponential smoothing without trend technique to more accurately forecast our skier demand on an annual basis. Exponential smoothing model elements. So some of the main elements we used in our calculations were firstly the actual demand, which is the historical observations of how many skiers attend our resort each year, comparative to the forecasted demand, which is the amount of skiers we initially predicted would attend versus the actual number that attend. A third element that we use is the error, which is the difference between the actual demand observed and the demand predicted. Some major measurements that we use are the MAD, the MSE, and the MAPE. These are various measurements taken that show the accuracy of the alpha level and the forecasting technique used. Another element are the upper and lower control limits. These are the limits that are placed 2 standard deviations above and below the historical mean of skiers in attendance from the years 2010 to 2020. These limits check if the forecast is in control or not. And then a final element that we used was the tracking signal, which is used to indicate if any bias is used in our forecasting method, either above or below the historical mean we observed. So then our results from using the exponential smoothing model, using Excel's solver add-in, we concluded that an alpha level of about 0.42 was the most accurate in forecasting skier demand for each season. Therefore, we should expect that 65,987 skiers will attend our Diamond Peak Ski Resort in the 2021 season. So this was the overall number of skiers that we calculated as our forecasted number for the 2021 season. You can see this is a diagram which we pulled from our Excel spreadsheet, which shows our data and our calculations that we used, as well as the graph, to calculate this forecasted number for the 2021 season. Now I would like to introduce Will, who will be speaking on the next few slides, which are about our second analysis method, which is our break-even analysis. Here's Will.
Thank you, Clare. The goal of the break-even analysis is to determine how many lift tickets we need to sell and how many days we need to stay open throughout the year in order to break even as a resort. We decided to implement the system in order to give all departments a better idea of what it takes to run a profitable resort. However, we designed this more specifically for our marketing and operations crews, as we need to sell a certain average amount of tickets per day while also keeping the mountain open for a minimum numbers a day for the season. There are a number of elements within the break-even analysis model, and they fall into the categories of revenues and expenses. Within expenses, we have variable costs and fixed costs, but first we'll go over our revenues. Lift tickets sold per day is the average number of lift tickets sold every day that the resort is open. The season passes sold is the quantity of season passes that we sold at $500 a pass before the season began. This year we sold 6,000 passes, which drove in $3 million in revenue at the time. We cannot sell any more of the season passes, so it is not factored into the model as a variable revenue. The number of days the resort is open is depending on a number of aspects, namely snow coverage and wind. Within expenses, first we have variable costs. Lift operating costs is $7,500 a day multiplied by the number of days that the resort is open. Lodge operating costs is $2,000 a day and is also multiplied by the number of days that the resort is open. Maintenance expenses are $1,000 a day, and they're an annual cost that is also multiplied by the number of days that the resort is open. Finally, we have fixed costs. The land rent per year is $1,500,000, and this is paid to the U.S. National Forest Park System to use the land. Salaries and wage expenses are compensation owed to all lift operators, lodge and restaurant employees, ski school, ski patrol, maintenance, and anyone else who works on the resort throughout the year. On this slide, you can see the spreadsheets we constructed for the break-even analysis. The table on the top shows how inputting different lift tickets sold per day and number of days the park is open directly impact the profit of Diamondback Resorts for the year. The bottom table analyzes a variety of combinations of lift tickets sold per day and the number of days the park is open. Anything in the green represents a healthy profit for Diamondback Resort. The shades of yellow are near the break-even point, and anything shaded red represents a loss. Based on our analysis, we determined, on average, we need to sell at least 260 lift tickets per day and remain open for at least 180 days per year to break even. Anything over these levels would be even more optimal. Anything below would be operating at a deficit. Thank you, and now Ethan will discuss our third solution to strategic capacity planning.
All right, thank you, Will. So today I'm going to talk about the third solution that we as the management team at Diamond Peak Ski Resort have decided on. And so that was implementing a strategic capacity planning spreadsheet in opening our new face of the mountain, which we will call the Diamondback face, which we anticipate will be open by 2021. We need to determine the optimal number of chairlifts or machines to purchase in order to satisfy both skier demand and simultaneously minimize our operating and purchasing costs. So there are three separate chairlift models that we can choose from three different manufacturers, and they each have different purchase prices, which would be the initial investment into the machine. And then following that initial investment, there are operating costs that we need to worry about, aka variable expenses, and it is our job to determine which model would be optimal for our needs. And using our own historical data, we were able to divide skiers into beginner, intermediate, and expert types. As looking in the past, we have noticed that beginners tend to take more time in loading the chairlift. Sometimes they might fall off or someone needs to stop the lift for some sort of reason, where on the other end, expert types are pretty much exactly the opposite in that they are very swift in loading these lifts. And so we need to accurately predict the average amount of time that each skier type demands per chairlift model. So elements within the model. So the first main category would be obviously the chairlifts, and as I kind of touched on just now, the purchase cost, which is the purchase price at which each chairlift will be actually acquired for, and then additionally the operating cost. So this is day to day, how much is it going to cost us as a ski resort when we are open to actually run these lifts. The second main category is going to be skiers, so expected customers by type. So once again, this is we divide them up into our beginner, average, and expert skill levels based on this face in the mountain alone. And essentially the terrain on this side of the mountain is a lot steeper and difficult, and so within the model, we anticipated that there would be a lot more expert skill-type skiers as opposed to beginners. And additionally, per each one of these skill level types, once again, using that historical data that we have built up and just our knowledge of the industry, we have come up with average skier loading time for each one of those types of customers that will be using the Diamondback face. So continuing on with other elements, we have to look into the operating assumptions that we assumed in regard to the chairlift. So total time per chairlift is going to be the amount of seconds that each chairlift model needs in order to fulfill all this skier demand. Additionally, we broke it down into daily seconds of what I like to call loadability, in that we essentially determine that there are about 33 minutes out of the ski day in which a lift can actually be loaded. It's not open for all 7 or 8 hours that we are open for, and there's only that small fraction of time in which skiers can actually load it. So design capacity, too, is seconds per day that skiers are able to board this chairlift. So as I said, that 33 minutes multiplied by the number of days that the chairlift needs to operate for. And we essentially assumed, given the light snow cover on this sort of steeper side of the mountain, that we would only be able to keep this face open on average for 90 days out of the year, instead of getting up towards 180, where the main face of our mountain usually operates at. And then lastly, number of machines required. So this would be the number of chairlifts. We can't just require it with one, but we looked into differing models that had either 3 or 4 machines, which we needed to install in order to satisfy this skier demand. So the model results, given the total amount of skier demand required and all the assumptions listed in the slides above, we have determined that purchasing 4 units, so 4 different chairlifts, of chairlift model 1 would be the optimal solution in meeting the capacity requirements for this new face of the resort, as its total purchase and operating costs are considerably lower than that of chairlift model 2 and chairlift model number 3, as it comes in at $516,444.44. So yeah, in conclusion, we hope these new decision support system implementations will help us be more efficient and effective and just make things easier on us as a management team at Diamond Peak Ski Resort. Through better forecasting our expected number of visitors for the 2021 season through exponential smoothing, and then running into the break-even analysis, knowing, first of all, how many tickets we must sell on average per day, and then also the number of days we need to stay open in order to break even, and just to better inform all of our departments. And then lastly, what I just went over, knowing what capital expenditure decision in purchasing chairlift, number one, in order to serve our customers' demand for this new Diamondback ski slope that we hope to open, and we hope continues to make our business not only bigger but also more profitable. Last thing I want to touch on in the future, we as an operations team look forward to finding even more ways by which we can leverage operations in certain areas in order to make us more efficient and essentially help us reach our two ultimate goals. And one, running a profitable ski resort, as I mentioned before, and then ultimately the even bigger goal is providing an enjoyable experience for our guests. And we at Diamond Peak, given these new operations tools, we believe that they ensure the ultimate success and longevity of our business. Thank you guys very much for listening. We appreciate it. Take care.